Hello.
Hello, Christina. How are you?
Good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm great. I'm very, very happy that finally we can go live with someone in in Dubai actually, because we're trying this for too long.
Yes, understand. Technology, huh?
Yes, it is. Christina, I have a lot of questions today with the transformation guru. But as I start always my live session, I love you yourself actually to introduce yourself to the audience, and then we can take it from there.
Sure, Habibti. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's wonderful and such an honor because, I've been a big fan of yours. My name is Christina Ioannidis, and I run a company called Aquitude, and we help companies build strong relationships with their customers and their employees. And part of what I do as well is also work with individuals who are looking to transform their life and their career. And a difference to coaching, this is all about taking an individual who's facing challenges in relation to redundancy, furlough, not necessarily knowing if they can go back to their previous employer, and give them a little bit of that kick into the strategies they could follow to rebuild their careers. So the program that we run actually is called Career Transformation Reboot, Rebuild, Reconquer, because it's all about reconquering our dreams.
Amazing. Christina, before we go into this session today, I met you by coincidence in Bahrain, actually. And at that time, I understand that you work actually a lot with women
Yes.
between in Bahrain, Dubai, let's say in the Gulf region. I
Yes.
usually like to go back to the person themselves. So you've helped a lot of women in the region, and I mean, most of the very powerful women I know, they know Christina and they've been working with Christina. Uh, let's go back to how
Sure.
did all this started, and why did you choose the Gulf or specifically Dubai as a base for you?
That's a great question, and thank you so much. As you know that one of the reasons I used to live in London, so I'll tell you the story. I used to live in London, and I was invited to come here very often to speak in conferences relating to women in business, because I was actually I wrote a book on the subject and doing a lot of training for women specifically in the UK, Europe, and internationally, and in the US. And when I came here the first time in this region, which was 2009, I fell in love completely with Dubai and with the amazing women that I met here. Now, I have to tell you that I was then invited many times to run women in leadership programs, okay? And every time I would come, we would have women from Bahrain, from Saudi, from the UAE, and Kuwait as well. And I just realized that there's such extraordinary women in this part of the world that internationally people are not aware of. So I made it my life's mission to come here, spend more time. So I left London to come to Dubai. And that's also, this is where we also met in Manama. So I've done a lot of work in Manama and Dubai. And it's been a journey to actually support women through a platform which I created as well called Top of Her Game, to create, to support women to become active, ambitious, and resilient. In this region, there's extraordinary women like yourself. I mean, you are really a game changer, to be honest. But what tends to happen is that women here are not as supported socially, within their environment, especially in male-dominated fields. So all that's needed is a little bit of inspiration and guidance, which is one of the reasons why I stayed in this region and why I do so much, especially around the guidance piece, through the female majlis and the virtual female majlis that you have been a distinguished guest at. So that's why I chose the region. And to be honest, I adore this region, and I really want to open now the view for the rest of the world to see, they open the window to the GCC and see and break the stereotypes of the women in this particular part of the world.
Amazing. Christina, when was that? So how many years you've been in the Gulf region?
So I actually moved over. I took my husband and I said, we're coming to the UAE from London 6 years ago. So 2014. So it's been 6 years.
The first impression you had about women's, and I mean, you've been working in the Gulf, but when you actually live in between women's in the Gulf, so what was the impression, and did it change in the past 6 years, or it was the same? Of course, Christina, I'm asking these questions to get into what you're doing now and what you need. So we will get to what is missing or what is actually need to be like a bit adjusted to get to our maximum opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. So the Gulf has gone through a lot of change. I'll give you some examples. In 2012, when I would come here and I would run my programs, and you know, I love taking pictures, and we take the selfie when we do the virtual, where they do the female majlis. I remember in 2012, there was a lot of resistance of anything to do with taking pictures of women, local women, whether they were covered or not. It was not an issue whether they were covered. It was the fact that there was this resistance. I don't want to be publicly seen in a public forum, whether it's Facebook, Instagram wasn't then powerful at the time, but I do not want to be seen. Now you fast forward to where we are today, and we're seeing women like yourself again and other women around you. They want, and they are really truly, how do I say this? They have a desire, a burning desire to make a mark. And to me, that's change. And to be visible, to be seen, to be making that mark, and also supporting other women. So I have seen practically an 180-degree change in women in this region, where I'm so, how do I say that? I am so excited and wonderfully inspired by this mental shift.
Mm-hmm. And you think it's not only the woman, is I think the whole environment and everyone around it being changed, a huge change actually in the past, let's say only 5 years. So Christina, when you came over, did you have the idea of starting the top of her game and the majlis idea, or it came with the women you actually met?
Well, I was running a version of the female majlis in London. So since 2003, I lied, 2006, I've been running events for women that were similar to what you have experienced in the female majlis. When I also was running them virtually. Believe it or not, in 2010, I was running these events virtually, but it was too soon. And this region wasn't interested or responding to anything to do with women connecting online, virtually, and supporting each other. And as I say, you look at now, there's a complete support system, there's a complete desire, whether it's in Saudi, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, anywhere in this region, there's an absolute want to say, right, we want to make a change. We want to connect with other women, which is why when I launched Top of Our Game in 2014, it was the first of its kind, and it still is, in actively supporting and encouraging women to be, as I said, ambitious, active, ambitious, and resilient, and overcome challenges. So for me, the important piece around Top of Our Game and the female majlis is women need to learn from other women that life is hard. Okay, but we all face challenges in this region. Culturally, there's different challenges to the rest of the world because the environment is completely different. But there are ways to overcome them, and this is where I'm seeing now through Top of a Game and female majlis and all the wonderful women like yourself. What I'm seeing is this: the desire, like I said earlier, that burning desire to do something, to move higher, to push the envelope, to push the boundaries. Okay. And this is why I like you're saying, there is such I'm enthused in being here, and I'm always for supporting the women in this region.
Amazing. Christina, one of the things that you said, maybe we got over it in the region, about the publishing and being actually let's say, a brand for yourself to start with before anyone else. So that's one of the things that we kind of get over it nowadays. But I'm sure that there are some qualities or some difficulties or challenges that women have been facing since you've come over 2014, and it's still there. Can you tell us what is the most things that people, I mean, women, female in this region still actually facing, and you think we need more to work on it to get over?
Look, I think this is an excellent question. It has multiple levels. Okay, so the region has, like you said, it has shifted, particularly when it comes to attitude in women, the role of women, and what they can and cannot do. There are certain pockets of society that there's still, however, some resistance. And I say small pockets, it's not everywhere. So in most of the GCC countries, and I chose Dubai because obviously Dubai, the leaders have been very supportive of women, and they're very vocal in supporting women. So the leadership is now inclusive and very supportive of women. But what you do find is certain parts of the social fabric. It could be extended families, it could be even parents sometimes are the ones that are holding women back and perhaps not supporting them in what would be seen as inappropriate. So let me give you an example. I had in one of my training sessions, I had a lady who was working in the oil industry. Okay, and she was working in what are they called? Out on the sea, they had a, what's it called? I forgot the word. Where they do drilling, and she was the only woman. Okay, and this is actually in Abu Dhabi, and I'm going to share the story because to me it made a mark. She said, "My parents know I'm in this industry. I adore this industry, but I have a real problem in being able to go out and be with the men in the whatever that is. It's called, I forgot what it's called.
The field. They call it the field, Christina.
There we go.
The field. Yeah.
There's a specific word. Anyway, being out in the where they drill out in the sea. Why? Because it's very likely that they don't have separate washroom for the women. Okay, so we have certain structural challenges still in certain environments, but we also still have challenges of the, like I said, that circle of influence that is sometimes hampering women, even though they themselves want to make a shift.
Very, very true. Actually, that's one of the things I faced myself, Christina. When you enter the man-dominated field, I don't blame them. They were not expecting it, but our let's say our part in it is to push and not just to give up and back. I mean, withdraw from the field, and then the circle will be there about women's. So, so you are the guru of transformation, and that's, as I said, I heard it from a lot of people. They always recommend Christina to help them through this. So when you, and we still facing this, when a female or a woman comes to you and tells you, I love what I'm doing, but 1, 2, 3, or I'm facing a lot of challenges, so I think I should stop, or I think that whatever they're saying is right. So how do you really help those women?
Yeah, so that's a great question because I've worked with a lot of women in different sectors in this region. And the challenges are similar but different in many respects. The first point I start with women is I ask them, number one, what is it you want to achieve? Not what everyone else is telling you should achieve, is what you personally want, okay? And this is when you talk about transformation, you have to go deep and dig deep into what it is that you want to achieve as a goal as an individual, okay? Professionally, that's the number one thing. Where do I want to get to? Do I want to be, for example, you interviewed Naila Al-Musawi, who I adore, and she's one of my clients as well. She said to me, I want to get to be on the board of a GCC company. And I said, fantastic, we can work together on that. She was very clear on what she wanted. And then the next thing is, okay, well, what are the challenges you're facing? We talk about the challenges, then we say, okay, how do we overcome them? So my point as an individual is to ask the hard questions, which in Naila's case it was, yes, I want to get on the board. Okay, well, what do you bring to the board? What makes you so special? Because at the end of the day, when you're going out there and you're talking to individuals who are very senior, they want to know why you're special. So they want to know, for example, I talk about the personal capital. They want to know, number one, what's your credibility in your field? What do you bring to them? Okay. Number two, how do you quantify that? So how do you measure the successes that you've actually completed or fulfilled in the past? And thirdly, who are the people in your life? What I call that is they call them the mentoring mesh. So the personal board of directors. Putting those three things together helps women in building their personal capital and being able to then promote and create their personal visibility plan to achieve what their ambitions are. I hope that makes sense, because that's the step-by-step process which I have followed with women in this region.
So let's say, what I understand, Christina, correct me if I was wrong. So it's not consultancy as much as mentoring women. I mean, women that are already in high position, let's say.
It's not necessarily. It depends on the level that they're at. So I have clients who are in kind of the middle level to the senior level. So, and it's not, when you talk about consultancy normally happens within a corporation, within an organization. So this is much more supportive. I call it coaching, but performance coaching. It's about getting the best and the most effective way for individuals to transition and transform their career. So it's performance coaching.
Okay, performance. And Christina, also you do that for women and that they are entrepreneurs or they have their businesses. So that's a different level of, let's say, yeah. So can you tell us more about that service,
Sure.
let's say, that you provide through your company?
Sure. So from entrepreneurs, the approach is the same, because at the end of the day, and this is what I say to women, whether they're corporate or professionals or they're entrepreneurial, either way, you have to promote yourself as if you had your own brand, as if you are a business. So for entrepreneurial business women, we do exactly the same process, but we do it through the lens of their company, because very often the individual is associated with their company, right? Mm-hmm. So if I was to say, an example would be the lady who founded Body Shop, who is a former mentor of mine. Unfortunately, she passed away. Dame Anita Roddick was associated with the Body Shop. The two went very close together, hand in hand. So we have to, from an entrepreneurial perspective, we do exactly the same thing. We look at what are your goals as a businesswoman? Where do you want to take your business? In terms of how do you market yourself? We look at that three dimensions that I talked about: the credibility, the quantification of what you bring to the table and all your business, and then who are the people who can influence and support you in that journey, and then we create the visibility plan to get them to where their business aims to be.
Okay. Christina, I think one of the things that females, it's around the world, to be honest, because I'm coming back from an aviation industry. I'm mostly out there more than being only in the region. And I find that females, they're facing the same challenges in perspective of you know, their ability or capability. So there are always questions on that and challenging, to be honest. We are, as a female, we are facing it in a daily work day, in any task that we have to do. So do you see that most of women, they don't go into career like development and transformation because they just don't want to be in this, you know, let's say constant pressure and challenges?
I don't know. I think women like thrive under pressure. I think women are very good because we're natural problem solvers. So I don't think it's that they don't like it. I think what happens is very often they get discouraged by their environment. They're not encouraged to come in, whether it's in aviation, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's financial services. The environment can be so, in a certain way, non-inclusive to them that they feel like they're outsiders. And so, and it's not that they give up, it's that there's a bias. I call this systemic bias. And so this is something that unfortunately a lot of industries still have to work on. I mean, I wrote a whole book on how companies can overcome systemic bias internally and create a culture that's inclusive for women. So I don't think it's so much the women not wanting, it's the fact that they have to fight harder. But I firmly believe that it is possible because I've done it myself. Look, I'm going to tell you a story, which is a personal story of mine. In 2001 and 2002, I got made redundant twice, okay? Because I was working in a part of the business world that went through a terrible crisis, which was the digital and IT bust at the time. So I lost my job twice, and I was shocked because I was a corporate woman. I'd always worked in large corporations. So when I got made redundant, I didn't know what to do next, right? I was in complete shock because, like most people who go through this, they think there must be something wrong with me if it's happening to me, okay? Now, fast forward, I identified an area that I was very happy and loved, and this is anything to do with accessories. You can tell I like my bling, right? So I created a business which was about bespoke accessories, creating made-to-order jewelry and accessories, and I opened a shop in Mayfair in London, which is a very expensive idea, and I shouldn't have thought about that idea, but I still wanted to pursue it, okay? Now, the story is that unfortunately, the business didn't work. It was an amazing business. We had amazing clients. Our retention of customers was fantastic. The feedback was awesome, but we ran out of cash. Fluss, my favorite word. Right? So I remember I was having this conversation with my mother, talking about challenges, okay? My mother and my parents live in Athens in Greece. So they're in Europe, but very similar Middle Eastern culture. And my mother, who's always been my #1 fan, said, Christina, we can't tell people that you lost your business because it's not acceptable for women to be associated with failure, okay? She didn't say the last phrase. I assumed it, okay? We will tell people you sold your business. And I said, Mother, I completely respect your decision, but just be aware that I will make it my role to tell people that you can come back from failure. Because if you do not have people like myself who go through what is the most normal business experience, because 95% of small businesses fail, okay, then you will have people who don't try. So this is why I believe in the whole notion of we have to push harder. Because for men, they're okay to fail. But for you women, oh, no, there's a stigma attached to it because, you know, we have to be perfect. Well, no. So that's my personal story around that.
Okay, so that's where it started. I totally agree to this, Christina. Maybe I can relate in one thing, and that's maybe in that we will be a bit, maybe I will follow your mother advice on that for a reason. To me, one of my motive and driven me to continue in my career as an aircraft engineer was if I give up, that would make it harder to the women's coming after me. So sometimes not giving up and not accepting the idea of failure it's a kind of a motivation also. It depends on how you see it. Of course, different circumstances and different reasons. So there was the cash and money, it was clear. Maybe in my case, it was only putting up with the pressure and challenges. So I had to push myself, you know, even harder. But it's still in our, I totally agree in what you said, that even in the smallest task in life, it's okay for a man to say, I don't know, or I can't do it. It's acceptable. But for women, they will always point, and here I'm talking about the career, that will say, not Hind, she couldn't do it, or Christina as a person, she couldn't do it. They would say, women cannot do it.
Yeah. And I would clarify one thing. I think that we need to separate and differentiate between failure and giving up. Because when I'm talking about failure, is the business failed, not Christina. Christina didn't fail, the business failed, and it was an extraordinary mistake. In fact, I call it the most expensive MBA one could imagine, because I learned so much. Right? And there's another thing when you're talking about your experience and potentially when you're all the challenges that you're facing and you're saying, no, I'm not going to give up. That's giving up. That is not failing. Failing is a natural part of the business world, but unfortunately, and where we learn from, right? Without failing in small projects or not doing something right, we don't learn. I mean, the same thing happens at school, right? If you fail an exam, you have to work harder next time. So it's the natural progression of learning. What I think happens when we're older, and this is exactly what you were saying, is this whole stigma around, well, women have to be perfect. A man can fail, he'll just, clean himself off, he can move on. Mm-hmm. A woman is not as acceptable. So this is where I would differentiate between, and agree with you completely though on keeping going.
And that actually, I thank you for clearing one of the most things that I always try to advertise through social media, that failure to me, it's only giving up. And that's, other than that, it's always a lesson in life that may prepare us for what is next. And maybe that's one of the main reasons to choose my my guests and my live session, that people moved and shifted from different career paths, where at the moment, I'm sure a lot of people thought they failed. Instead, they might had their own vision of their lives, and they did extraordinary work in other careers and other fields maybe. And that's one of the main, let's say, messages I have, because if we are afraid of failure, that makes us never try. And if we don't try, then we will just stay where we are, and we would never know how far we can go. Christina, maybe also one of the things or challenges that women's, maybe I always talk about it, especially in aviation, but I think it reflects in all man-dominated fields, usually where women are not used to be there, as the rules that apply. So let's say when aviation industry was there, all the rules and regulation was tailored for who will work there as a man. So when a woman comes in, a lot of this regulation need to be adjusted, not to fit her, but to make it more, let's say, reasonable for her to continue in the career. Especially as a natural part of her life, to be a mother, to get pregnant, to have, all of those things.
Absolutely.
So is this something, as a Christina, you work on with, let's say, specific areas? Do you actually work on regulation itself, or advertising, at least for these ideas?
So, great question. So we don't work with governments, or I don't work with governments, for example, to create legislation, because that requires going in through the legal route, if you like. But what I do, and I have done in the past, and which is why I wrote my book on what companies need to do to be what's called inclusive and include women, is to look at the corporate culture. What's the culture? What are the signals that employees, female employees, are seeing and hearing in the business? How do they feel when they are in meetings with their colleagues? So we have actually a 4-part assessment, which I would be more than happy to share with you, which looks at the key elements that women look for in their career. And those elements tend to actually, and this is what's very interesting as well, tend to now reflect the requirements of Generation Z. So the younger generation that's coming now up the ranks are looking for very similar things to an inclusive culture, where the first thing, you do what you're passionate about. You are allowed to be flexible, so you're allowed to take a time out, for example, of your career and come back whether it's maternity, whether it's because you want to go to education, maybe obtain more specialisms, a PhD, etc. The other thing is all about flexibility and collaborating more within departments and being change agents internally. And lastly, also including the sense of social responsibility and the community. These are 4 areas that women highlighted to us when I did my research for my book. God, that was 10 years ago, that highlighted that this is why they're leaving. They're finding that those 4 areas are not satisfying, are not addressed internally within the cultures of the businesses that they're working in. And so we created what I call the blueprint for companies to address those. So you're absolutely right. We do work with companies. We don't work with legislation. I wish I could, but I'm not of a legal background.
Yeah, and you actually mentioned one of the, when I meet any, you know, very talented woman in her career or past career, and I ask her, why did you stop or didn't continue? So the first and number one reason is she had to detach from her environment or career because of the family, and then she couldn't find her way back. So most of women, they don't continue their career path is because they feel left over. They you know, the 2 years or 1 year they're away, it's so much time in our very fast life going. So I think this is one of the most topics that we all have to emphasize on, just to have women stay in their path. A lot of what you've said, Christina, I think it's part of your book, You Lost, How to Win Back Your Female Talent, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's exactly that. And you know, it's probably the only book, hence, that's been written by women targeting male executives to educate them about what women want in business. And I'm very proud of it, because everything that you've said is exactly what we identified 10 years ago, and this is why we wrote this book with my co-author. There's something really interesting that you also alluded to. What we're seeing and what we saw in 2010 is that women were leaving corporations. They were leaving working with a large business. But what they were doing is that they were coming back into what's called the labor force as entrepreneurs. So this is why we wrote the book, because even though the stereotype is women are disappearing from the economy, they are coming back, but they're setting up their own businesses. And this is why we call it the book, Your Loss, How to Win Back Your Female Talent, because it is a loss to the business, because women can be very productive. And so that is a very important point to also mention. The older and up the career path we get, as women, we tend to want to follow our hearts more and do what really satisfies us the most. And that's one of the things that makes us different as a gender. And on that note, I think there's something really interesting with COVID-19. You know, traditionally businesses have been looking at a career path that is very, you know, kind of linear. COVID-19 has broken that, because you will find thousands of people today have been made redundant. I mean, in your field, aviation, unfortunately, there's been thousands of people, or same thing in hospitality, from one day to the next. So what we'll start seeing, I think, and this is something I predicted in my book 10 years ago with my co-author, we're going to see the creation of what is the experience path, not a career path, but it will be people will start working in projects and doing things like what's called the gig economy, working as specialists in particular areas, but for themselves. And, you know, they will have to compete with other people in finding those projects. So I think we're going to see a shift as a result of COVID-19 in how people's career paths actually evolve, which will be better, more similar to kind of the female model.
Okay. As you mentioned, COVID-19, I think a lot of people, a lot of females are struggling now in their businesses and in their, let's say, career, maybe field. What did you know? Okay, so you product a lot of things in the book 10 years back, but now as in present, I'm sure a lot of females comes with a lot of different, let's say, issues or challenges they're facing. So what are the most challenge that female now with this current situation are facing, and how can they overcome it?
Yeah, gosh, this is an amazing question. Globally, I think women face the biggest challenge with COVID-19 has been the fact that they've had to do homeschooling as well as work from home. So that separation of my child may be in the school and I don't have to necessarily think about it now, him or her now, and at the same time being active and productive are two realms that actually have hit women very hard. There's a third element that goes into that, which is COVID-19 has also made women, because they're so busy and we take more of the household chores, okay, generally, globally, we then tend to disappear more because we have more that is sitting on our desk, that is literally filling our day. So COVID-19 has put a big brake on women and being visible, in being able to be productive during those working hours because of homeschooling. So the way to overcome this, and this I say this to everyone, is maintain your visibility. You still have to be visible to your employer and the people who you work with. You have to make an extra effort of highlighting your contributions and your achievements during this period. And the third thing is, it's going to be tough because the world is not set up, particularly when you're talking about homeschooling and caring for men to do it. It's expected that the women have to do it. So there is a conversation that needs to happen there, and I don't really touch that, but it is about women being able to stand up and say, look, I need a little bit more help here from the family and from other parts of the household, the husband, etc. Which again, we're pushing the boundary, particularly for this region,
maybe
of what's expected, right? And so this is what I would say. It's become harder, but we need to really push harder. This is one of the reasons when we do the career transformation piece, we focus on how do you get that visibility going, because that's number one.
I think you mentioned, Christina, one of the very, very important point, and thanks to COVID-19, maybe it will help to expedite that change, which is the contribution of the husband or the father in the house. I find it changing in our region. I mean, in a
Yes.
very, very big time. It was never the way it is now. But I think for those people who didn't change yet and cope with that change, COVID-19 pushed them to be a part of it, which is amazing. And maybe one of the very, very important point also you mentioned, and I think here is a message for every woman: you don't have to take it all. It's not your responsibility to have it all. That's not an achievement. Killing yourself and doing the responsibility that has to be shared, it doesn't make you a superwoman. It just makes you putting yourself under more pressure and giving up what is really matter to you as a person. So it's okay, and that's what maybe one of the conversation I had with one of my friends, and she's a kind of perfectionist, and I told her, you know, she was breaking down in COVID-19, and I said, the little things, it's okay for the laundry to stay 2 to 3 days waiting.
Absolutely.
Or the dishes not to be washed every day, or, you know, any little things that you had it in control because of the time you had. It's okay to you know, relieve yourself from them. Other than that, you would always, and that's what most women end up with, has to choose between being a perfect housewife, mother, whatsoever call it, or have a great career. And I think that to me, success is to balance them both. So you have this and that in a very balanced way, and that only will happen when you have the right support. And it's not from the man. I also say this, Christina, maybe from our region, it's always how that you get used. I mean, you get people around you used to it. So if you you know, treat everyone that you are taking care of everything, you're carrying all the load, then they will just relax and do nothing. So that's when things
Absolutely.
have to be shared.
Absolutely. And can I add one more thing on that note? Someone said to me once, and I love this quote, and I can't remember who it was, but she said, women can have it all, but sometimes it's not at the same time. So
That's
these,
actually Christina, Oprah Winfrey. She says women can have it all, but not all at the same time.
well, so whoever it was, I think it was someone who told me that quote, and I loved it. And to me, this is one of the biggest challenges, and I've done it myself. I expected perfection and everything. And I had to learn through these terrible and hard experiences, which have been life lessons to me, that you need to sometimes live with what's mediocrity in what would not, in areas that are not necessarily the most impactful in your life. And you need to focus on your energy on the things that will make the highest impact. And so whether it's your career, your visibility, being out there, being seen, following your dreams, for me, are what I would call the high impact areas. The home stuff, the whether, you know, whether there's a fingerprint on a window, those aren't important because they don't hamper you. They're just things they're like a little weight that we have, that we impose on ourselves. And unfortunately, we do so very often willingly as women. We just make this, you know, we just bash ourselves with canes, metaphorical canes, because we expect that we should be doing absolutely everything perfectly, and it doesn't work that way. It's like you say, you've got to balance things out.
Exactly. And maybe this is one of the things also, Christina, I'll just add 2 points in that. I remembered when I said, when Naila Al-Musawi told me, and one of her, let's say, quotes that she always say, that you can have it all. And I told her about this quote we just mentioned, that you can have it all, but not all at the same time. She actually showed me her point of view, where she said, no, you can have it all and at the same time. And her point of view was very, very nice, saying that you can have it all at the same time when you have the right support and when
Absolutely.
you have the right hands around you. I really loved that, to be honest. And she actually changed my point of view of let's say seeing things, or what I had in mind, just with one phrase that's actually been discussed. And there is also one of the things maybe I faced, Christina, and maybe from our region, and that's, I think, very important also for females to also notice, so they don't pressure themselves. So if your mother or you've been raised in a family that female was not really career oriented, or they were not really driven in a career way, and they were doing certain things, take caring of it, you would see you will feel a bit of a pressure when they know that you're not doing things that women's supposed to do. But
Yes.
as long as you are fine with it with your partner, then fine. So for example, me personally, I don't cook for 2 reasons. I don't like it, and plus it takes a lot of time where I can do other things. For my mom, that's a huge deal. That's how can you don't cook for your husband? Although for both of us, are completely fine with it. We've been living with it for 6 years. It's never an issue. But that continuous, part where my mom keeps saying, "Did you start cooking? Did you start cooking? What have you done for dinner, for lunch, and whatsoever?" It keeps going because I believe and I know that it's not part of my responsibility. If I want to do it, that's nice and good. But if I don't, it's not, I'm not obligated to do. I think that
Absolutely.
kind of ideas and things that been raised with us, us as a woman has to start changing it, just to make things easier on us.
Absolutely
Christina,
agree.
yeah, here Mariam Al-Blushi is writing, having a comment. I'll read it for you, and then time passed so fast that we might have to conclude our live today. She says, "We left all the responsibilities and wait because we think this is the meaning of care." I absolutely agree with you, Mariam.
Yes.
Before commenting, maybe Christina, I will just say that exactly that's my point, where I say that caring and providing as a woman changed. So before it was cleaning, cooking, you know, take caring of the house. Now she is actually participating even in the finance part, and that's caring.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and I was going to say the same thing, because care is I'm demonstrating my support to my ecosystem in my home, and that can take many forms. And I agree with you completely. The financial, the economic contribution today is just as important. Now, sometimes, and this is the important thing, is the attitude that we also bring to the table as individuals. Demonstrating we care means bringing money to the table, okay, the metaphorical table, but at the same time doing what we love so that we're happy when we're doing it. Because what I'm finding also is women get stuck in a career, in a position in their career, they're frustrated, and then they're unhappy in their roles, and that impacts the relationship in the home. And even though they may be providing with they trying to care and demonstrating that care, because they are in a situation where they're unhappy, it comes across like they come across as not being able to cope, very challenged overall. And I think this is the point around the caring piece, is that we can still demonstrate care as long as we know that we're doing it from a position where we are happy and we're contributing, and we're also willing to say, you know, like you said, that I don't necessarily wash the dishes, it'll happen, it will go in the dishwasher, it might go tomorrow, rather than today.
Exactly. And then just to you know, you've said a very valid point. I mean, I want just to emphasize on it that not only the eco or the understanding, I think here for women to be actually, and this is always what I say, to continue on their career and to grow in their career, their partner in life is very important, to understand it from, no, I would not say day one, I would say before day one starts between them, to understand the caring. So again, we don't want and that's one of the things that I as messages in social media, I really emphasize on it. It's not a success to have a very amazing career path where you are emotionally and let's say socially not balanced. Otherwise, you are not having a balanced life. So what really matters when we are talking about transformation in the career and growing and all of that is actually give you that satisfaction of you as a person. So if you take one of them, whatever it is, it would not make you happy. And that, so in that aspect, Christina, what do you have to say for all females out there that they are hearing or they will hear that in future?
So I completely agree, and this is where I'll share another part of my story, because I was working in a very successful career when I got made, even though I got made redundant twice, and I thought I was happy. Hence, I thought that I was happy, and I was very unhappy because I wasn't fulfilled in my personal life. Basically, I didn't have a husband, right? Because I was at that age where it's important to have someone in your life. And I thought that the problem was that I was unhappy because I didn't have a special someone. On the contrary, so this is where I'm going to go back to that business that I set up that didn't work. When I started that business, the day that I actually created that business, which was the 21st of August, 2003, and that was 17 years ago, okay, I became the happiest woman on the planet. That journey, even though it ended badly, I became the happiest ever. And in fact, I met my now husband exactly on that same day. So for me, if you are in a good place, if you are happy with what you're doing, you will be, the law of attraction will work your way, and things will happen positively for you. And so this is why for me, and this is probably a wonderful point to close at, is when you're thinking about your career in the future, if you're stuck, think about what do you do when time runs away with you? What is it that you're doing? And let's think about how you can use that time to potentially identify your career for the future, or a career of the future.
And I think that was a stereotype let's say 10 years back, Christina, I grew up and I was, let's say, you know, I was searching for successful women in their career to actually have a role model or to learn from their experience, because I always know that I want to be a successful career woman. But I noticed that stereotype that usually women that is very successful in their careers back then, they usually didn't have a very balanced social life or personal life. And it's a mutual, let's say, effort. It's not about the female, although most of the work is on you, but it's also about the male, and let's say the society, to understand and to break that, let's say, stereotype, because again, we don't want to, picture a woman that is very successful in her career but have nothing else. And there where the work balance comes, and that's where things actually change magically, even from your experience. Christina, we are left with 7 minutes from our live session for today, and I would like to conclude it with you to give us 5 actually advices from all what you've been seeing, especially for COVID-19, to women at this time.
Okay, so I'll probably have to repeat a couple that I've already mentioned. So the first thing is, us women need to, number one, make sure we're visible. I mean, you're doing a great job, Hind, in giving a platform for other women and also keeping yourself visible. So women need to do that. We have to be visible. We have to be seen. Don't hide, because in COVID-19, we know you're completely overloaded, but make time for yourself and make time for where you want to be perceived as adding value in your career. Number 2, make sure you reach out to those mentors, both male and female, by the way, who can help you in your career. Your personal board of directors, as I call them. They are an incredible part of moving to your next phase, or maintaining, if you're happy in a job, maintaining your position where you are. Number 3, be open to ask for help. So when we do the female majlis, and you know this yourself, we ask women to peer mentor each other and talk about their challenges that they're facing, and offer support to each other. And that's critical, because women are very bad at asking for help, and I say this with love because I love women. But we've got to admit that there are times where we need help. Number 4, we need to build our focus on our achievements and make sure that people are aware of what we are achieving, because we've all done amazing things in the past, and we've got to bring them up and make sure that we're communicating those. Number 5 is definitely be happy. Do what makes your heart sing. If you are at this point in COVID-19, which by the way is a very challenging time for everyone, and I don't know anyone who hasn't faced depression of some sort, and I can admit it. I was depressed at the beginning because it was a shock, right? It's a normal response to a crisis. But we have to look at what makes us happy, and we encourage ourselves, and I encourage everyone who is part of this video or the session to focus on what fills their heart. I call it what makes them tick. Did you say 5 or 7?
5.
5. There we go. That's the 5.
I can go on. No, because I wanna use the last minute to actually 2 minutes. Just for you to tell, because this video gonna be on YouTube, so whoever want to reach out for Christina or need any help or be part of the Majlis, be part of top of her game. So can you guide us to which channels, and how do people can actually reach out to Christina?
Yes, of course. So I have a terribly long Greek surname, but they can follow me on Instagram at Christina Ioannidis _official. Also, Top of Her Game has a website, which is topofhergame.biz. My personal site has a lot of the information around the career transformation piece. So if they go to ChristinaIoannidis.com, career transformation, it's all there. Inshallah, and they can reach out to me, of course, through direct messaging on Instagram as well.
Okay, that's great. I just wanted to, because I know there is a lot that we couldn't cover in this very short session. And again, I would just emphasize that a lot of very strong, successful women that when I meet, they actually mention Christina, and that made me, I have to highlight not only you, it's just highlight that we have people like Christina in our region that can help you, because it's okay to ask for help, as you mentioned from your second advice for women out there. Thank you so much, Christina, for your time. I really enjoyed it. I know our session today is different than usual because we're speaking in English, and that's what I see some messages or comments asking us to translate it. I hope I can translate it, but for that, thank you so much. I appreciate the time that you
Can I
gave
add
us.
one more thing? Do we have enough time for me to add 30 seconds?
Yes,
On the 2 minutes, okay. On the 1st of September, and this is relevant to all the ladies who are, and gentlemen who are in aviation, hospitality. On the 1st of September, 5 p.m. UAE, we are running the first of many free webinars around career transformation. And inshallah, I would love to have your audience be part of it. So happy if we can share that link as well. It will be on Zoom, so anyone inshallah will be able to access it. It's very important and it's free, and I'm calling out those industries particularly because they've been the hardest hit in COVID-19.
Okay, amazing. I would wait for the link to post it the soonest, and people can join, especially from the aviation. I know we are facing a lot of challenges.
Yes.
As you can see today, I was about to cancel our session because of work. Thanks God it works out. So thank you so much, Christina.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate your time and effort in this session, and I will look forward to meet you very soon.
Inshallah. Lovely. Thank you so much, Han.
Thank you, Habibti. Bye-bye.